Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back. Welcome back, everybody. It's Michael James, another edition of the Live from the Heartland show, and our first guest is the one and only, the incomparable Jim Knoedel. And I've known Jim for many, many years. He's a longtime track coach. He's a guy who knows a lot about what's going on in the world, and he's turned into quite an author, doing a number of books about his favorite subject, running. And I asked him to come on as part of our Olympic finale. As many of you regular listeners or viewers know, we've had a number of people on the show talking about the Olympics, and the Olympics just ended, and I asked Jim if he'd come on and give us some of his thoughts about how it went. So hello to you, Jim.
Hey, Michael, good to see you.
Good to see you in your car. And I love this technology. We can talk to people anywhere in the world, inside, outside, upside, downside. I've asked you to come back on the show. You've been a regular guest over the years to talk a little bit about the Olympics. You know, and the Olympics is designed for many, many years to bring people together. It's flown in the face of some repressive governments and activities in the world. What's your take on the Olympics and things you think people ought to remember?
Well, this is the one thing I think to begin with. This is it's been 100 years since Paris hosted the last Olympic. It was Amos Alonzo Stagg was a track coach for the Olympic team in 1924 in Paris. So I think for me that's significant because we have a Chicago connection there.
Amos Alonzo Stagg was my father's coach when my dad played at the University of Chicago for, I think, a year. And I remember a story about my dad saying he got chewed out for riding around in convertible with girls by Stagg. My dad's long gone, as is Stagg, so we can't verify any of that. But what were some of the highlights for you of the Olympics?
I started off watching the swimming, and I think Katie Ledecky for the United States was probably the star of the Olympics this year. There was a lot of good performances, but she got her 9th gold medal at the Olympics. So that's quite a feat. And, you know, she's a former Stanford grad. And I think one of the things that I see in some sports, swimming, track and field, soccer, a lot of them are Stanford grads. And I'm always amazed about that. But Katie has done a great job. This is her second Olympics. And I think she's going to be, as I know, people a lot of times they don't want to give up their career, and so I think she might be back again to see if she can get as many as Michael Phelps. Although he had 28, I don't know that she's ever going to get that many, but she'll do a pretty good job. But we finished up with men's and women's basketball. The men just finished yesterday. They won their 5th straight gold medal, and I think it was probably one of the more difficult ones. Certainly, they got cheated back in 84 about out of a gold medal, but they did get the gold medal. And the women's team won the gold medal too, and that was their 8th straight gold medal. So the women have been doing phenomenal. I know the women's soccer, the United States team got gold medal there. Mallory Swanson was one of the stars for the team, and then we have women's gymnastics, and I also think that's probably if you pick 2 or 3 sports in the Olympics, that's probably one of them. And it was good to see Simone Biles back. She got a gold medal, helped get a gold medal for the U.S. team, and did a phenomenal job herself. But I was enjoying that. For you and I, Michael, we can remember back in the 72 Olympics and Olga Korbut and some of those old ones. But I think Simone Biles may have eclipsed some of what we saw there. Now, Michael, were you ever a gymnast yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. No, I maybe like hung on a parallel bar or something. But no, I never did any gymnastics. And I used to be able to stand on my head, but that's long gone with these wrecked old shoulders of mine. But they really impressed me. I mean, just the physical stamina, the ability to stay rigid in the positions they get into, those flips, hitting the floor. You know, I've crucified my own body just falling off of stairs and, twisting things. And
the ability for them to keep at it under the kind of pressure, both physical and mental, that they face is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the Olympics ended yesterday with the women's marathon. That's a first. Typically, it's the men's marathon, but I think the field was actually bigger for the women's. And it's amazing. The woman that won, Sifan Hassan from Netherlands, over the 10 days of the track and field events, she ran 34 miles worth of races. Now, at first you think there's no way. Yes, she did. She ran a 26-mile marathon. She ran the 5K twice in a prelim and a final, and that's 6 miles, and another 6 miles in the 10K. So she had a lot of racing over the 10 days. So amazing to see.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. What's your sense about the swimming in the river, some of the entertainment factors? I watched the opening and I found it very enjoyable and impressive. I did not watch much of the closing, except a bunch of athletes making faces in front of the cameras and waving and cheering and acting up. How was the entertainment aspect of it for you, as well as the competition?
I thought it was, very good. The opening I enjoyed a lot. I thought it highlighted when you think of Paris, you think of the Seine and Notre Dame, and you think of Eiffel Tower, and they certainly got that vibe for it. I think, they had issues with the water quality for the swimming marathon and the triathlon, and I don't know that they should have had it there actually, but they did. That was probably, if I had to pick the biggest issue with the Paris Olympics, might be one of them. The other, I know the athletes complain about the lack of air conditioning in the village. And for people that haven't been there, it gets hot in Paris in the summer, and to be in any room without air conditioning is tough, and especially when you're trying to compete for elite opportunities. So I support their ideals, but sometimes you have to make exceptions, and I think this would have been one.
I like the opening a lot. The one thing I wish I had seen more of were close-ups of the teams as they were going down the river in those boats. I like to really get a look at the people. One of the things that I'm continued to be really happy about is the increased diversity of teams everywhere. I mean, the Japanese women's basketball team had two, African descendant women on their team. Mm-hmm. And that's not just that team. I mean, Poland, various other it's great to see that the world, being challenged by immigration and migration and so many people, at climate change, but that people, that these countries are not all white anymore or all one race, that they're kind of mixed. That's kind of how I like to see the world. Live it up.
No, I think it is. I think it's become a melting pot, because you see like Hassan Safan, who won the Netherlands gold medal in the marathon. She's from Ethiopia, but originally, to see people competing for all. We've had quite a few in the U.S. team from Ethiopia recently, Kenyans on the team recently. So it's a very diverse team, and I think that in track and field has represented the changes that have gone on everywhere. So it's nice.
Jim Knoedel, what's your take on Olympics in 2028, which will be a return to Los Angeles, I think, for the third time? The last time was in 1984, and they were touted to having quite a bit of success. What's your sense of this one, and what changes might people expect?
Well, I think it'll be they'll do a good job. I think the issues will be weather, to be honest, and air quality. A lot of times with all the fires that we've had in California, I think those are certainly be issues. They won't have to worry about going with air conditioning, because everything will be. But they have a variety of venues. They've done it before. They have experience. So I think it'll be a good job, because I think overall about Paris, that's one of the things that people said. It was organized well, good officials. Transportation around town, because one of the things in some Olympics, like in Mexico City, they had a tremendous difficulty. Now that was in '68, so it was a long time ago. but there's some that have had challenges with that, and that may be a challenge in LA. But it may be more for the fans because they'll house the athletes by the locations for the sports. So I think overall, I expect to see a good job there.
I think I saw somewhere that they're going to try to have it be car free. That might be a wishful thinking on my part. But also, I didn't get to watch the break dancing or breaking, whatever it was called, but I think that's not going to be at the Olympics in LA. Let me switch topics a little bit, not too far off, but you've been a longtime track coach. You coached a number of places, whether it be Iowa, Northwestern, long time at Loyola, where I met you, then University of Illinois, Chicago. What is your, we used to always talk, you, Gordon Thompson, Cooney, myself, some of the athletes that you had about how track and field didn't get enough attention. It wasn't as popular a sport as we think it ought be. I'm just wondering what's your sense about the status of track and field in this case, it's your specialty, in the country as a whole and its popularity.
Yeah, I think, this Olympics, honestly, I think they highlighted well. They had good commentation. They had great athletes. I mean, it was phenomenal. The United States team got 34 Olympic medals, and they had 14 gold medals out of the thing. So the United States represented track and field well. And I think, it's important that you get good performances and good athletes. And I think, this will be one Olympics that I'll always remember for. The women are as talented. I mean, and not that they weren't as talented. I misspoke. The women prove that they're equal to men's performances as they competed. Because when you watch some of the women, some of the times they ran, it's phenomenal. I truly can't believe that they're doing so well. And I think for the average citizen, to see a guy run a mile, well, it's 1,500, but equivalent to the 344 mile, to see a woman high jumping 6 feet 8 inches, to see a woman pole vaulting, 16 feet, it's phenomenal what the women are doing. And I think that's brought a new contingent of younger children, seeing that boys and girls can do well and they can be Olympians. And I think it's opened a lot of minds to what is possible down the road.
It's also we got to give a big shout out to the legislation, Title IX, that talked about equality in sports between men and women on university campuses. Some universities got rid of sports to make that happen, but that's another question. We could go on forever talking together, but I do want to make sure that we talk about your books. And before we talk about your books, give us a little bit of a history about how you got involved in track and field, how you came to love it and decided on it as a career path.
Well, it's funny. When we were little, we used to have track meets in our backyard. We would make hurdles using 2 lawn chairs and put a bar between it, and we'd make 3 or 4 hurdles. We used to pole vault. We used to high jump. We used to long jump. We used to do sprints. We would run for a quarter, we'd run around the house once. For a mile, we'd run around the house 4 times. So I did track meets when I was little. I think it was a natural progression for me. My younger brother was a college coach for a short time. He got smart and realized you don't get paid very well. But I did it for 41 years. I was 35 in college and 6 years as a high school coach.
What is what's the stat? You're retired from University of Illinois, Chicago, but how did that team do under your leadership, and how are they doing now that you have left?
Well, I still continue to follow them. They've done a good job. I think one of the things you're seeing in sports is that it's becoming, with all the changes in the NIL in NCAA sports, is it's becoming a haves and have-nots, and that means money. Just to give you an idea, Big Ten schools will get $100 million a year from TV revenue. A school like UIC would probably get maybe 15,000, 25,000. So it's the future of schools like UIC and Northern Illinois and Illinois State is not good right now with the way things are changing. For Big Ten schools like Northwestern, yes, good, but it's not. So it'll be interesting what happens. And when you talk about Title IX, that's going to have a huge impact with this change of money. Illinois State as opposed to Northwestern. So
speaking of Northwestern, do you think they'll ever bring a track team back?
No, they won't, and they could, but that's a good example. Right now, they spend $2.3 million less on women's sports in Northwestern. And they're spending $800 million for a new football facility. Now tell me there's not enough money there if they can spend $800 million to start a women's track team. I don't think they'll do it, but they could, but they choose not to. So it's a mystery to me.
Jim Knoedel, tell us the names of your books and give us a little timeline about what they're about and how you go about doing your writing.
Well, I started writing just because I enjoy putting things on paper. I initially had no idea that I was going to write a book, but I started just chapter by chapter, more or less. And my first book actually turned out to be 2 books. I didn't realize that I had written that much. I wrote 250,000 words, which to me I didn't know if that was big, small, or whatever. But my editor said, that's enough for 2 books and maybe 3. So I learned quickly. But I'm working on a book now on Ted Hayden and the University of Chicago Track Club. Ted was a coach at the University of Chicago from 1950 to 1985, and he started the track club. And it was one of the unique ones in the United States because most of them were separate from a university. His was part of the university. So that was something that had never been done before and has never been done since. He melded the two together and he had a lot of Olympians. He had Rick Wohlholter won numerous Olympic medals. Jan Johnson won a medal. Brian Oldfield won a medal. So he had a lot of success, but unfortunately that time is come and gone right now. So it's changed a lot.
So you're doing is this going to be a novel like your other books, or is this going to be like a biography of Ted Hayden, the famed UFC track coach?
More like a biography. You find interesting facts. One of the things, he was an Olympic coach in 1968. So he talked with Tommy Smith. All the coaching staff did talk with Tommy Smith and John Carlos before they went out to do the fist raise. He was at the 72 Olympics when one of the Israeli athletes escaped when they were captured. They pounded on his door. And so he was the first one to know that there was a revolution, more or less, in the Olympic Village. He knew it before anyone else did. So he's been at the forefront. So I bring out some of those highlights of his career. And he's had a storied career, a national coach many, many times. And so it's been fun to talk with his son and daughter. His son is 75 and his daughter is 83, but I get a lot of stories from them. But he was always very deserving of a book. And so I was encouraged by Al Carries, the coach at North Central College, who ran under Ted Hayden. And I think a lot of people in the Chicago area have. I've talked with, probably 25 or 30 Olympians and probably 50 or 60 of his former athletes. So it's been an enjoyable process. So
you're out there doing the work. You're doing your research and you're doing your writing. By being in the car, we know you're going to your doctor. And tell us the names of your first 3 or 4 books. You got so many. I've read 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. I mean, my first one was The Golden Era, discussing a father and son, how the different eras differed. The second one was a continuation of that, A Long Road Ahead. And then I turned and started talking in regards to the 50th anniversary of Title IX. I started writing a women's version, and it's called Run Like a Girl. It's the first book. And the second one is Girl on the Run. And it's one set in high school and one set at college. So I've got good responses to the books. I've sold a couple thousand books already, and I'll continue to write more. I have no doubts about that.
Well, you certainly are a prolific dude. Do you still run?
No, I wish I could. The old age has cut up on me. Got a bad ankle and old body. If I was a car, I think I'd be in the junkyard right now.
Well, you're not a car and you're not in the junkyard. And it's always good to run into you and to hear what you're working on. I mean, as you know, I crank out some books myself, and you do inspire me, and you've always been a little bit inspirational and a very positive dude, encouraging the others. And you've set a good example, Jim Knoedel. And I want to thank you on a lot of fronts. So good luck at the doctor today, and I'll see you around the neighborhood, maybe at the Glenwood Avenue Arts Fest this weekend. Keep living it up.